All right, this is the City of Reno Planning Commission meeting dated Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. The time is 6 p.m. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Velto.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Item A2, Madam Clerk, roll call.
David Jockman.
Here.
Jacob Williams.
Here.
Alex Velto.
Here.
Manny Becerra.
Present.
Christina Del Villar.
Here.
Tina Gompiantini.
Here.
Carrie Romeyer.
Here.
We have a quorum of the Reno City Planning Commission.
Thank you, and right back to you, Madam Clerk. Item A3, public comment.
It should be noted for those in the audience that comments are to be addressed to the Planning Commission as a whole. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the Planning Commission agenda. Please note that the Planning Commission may not take action upon any matter not agendized for possible action on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name, and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you're an attendee in the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment at this time, please raise your hand. Lastly, while in this room, please be respectful. Warnings will be issued by the presiding officer if there is disruptive behavior, and you'll be asked to leave chambers if the behavior continues. For those online or in person, this is the opening general public comment period. If you'd like to speak under a specific agenda item, you can speak now or wait for that agenda item. With that, we did receive correspondence for this item that were forwarded to the commission and added to the record. I don't have anyone online with their hand raised for this item, and I do not have any public comment cards in person.
Thank you. Do we have any requests to speak under this item in chambers? Hearing none, we will move forward to item A4. This is approval of the agenda for today, February 18th, 2026.
Move to approve. Commissioner Williams, second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Item A5, approval of the minutes from our February 4th, 2026 meeting at 6 p.m.
Commissioner Williams, move to approve.
Oh, Commissioner Velto,
Del
second.
Villar. Oh, go ahead.
We have a motion from Williams, second from Del Villar. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. We will now move to item B, staff announcements. Mr. Raley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one quick announcement this evening. The Regional Planning Commission appointments will be considered by City Council next Wednesday at their regular meeting, and that's the only announcement I have today.
Thank you. We will now move forward into our public hearings. Item C1, this is a staff report for possible action. Case number LDC 26-35. This is Roberts front setback deviation. We will begin with a presentation from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Commission. For the record, I'm Nathan Gilbert, Principal Planner with the City of Reno Development Services. Presenting this evening, LDC 26-35, Roberts front setback deviation. So the subject's parcel is a 0.97 acres located on the north side of Heathridge Lane. It's currently vacant and proposed for a single-family home, which is allowed by right. The request this evening is for a major deviation to reduce the required front yard setback from 30 feet to 15 feet. Key issues in the request are compatibility with surrounding uses and overall grading impacts. The master plan land use designation for the site and the area is single-family neighborhood. Key master plan policies include underutilized properties, flexible design, and context-sensitive design. The zoning for the site and surrounding areas, single-family residential, 3 units per acre. So a little bit of background. This is the last undeveloped lot on Heathridge Lane. The Heathridge subdivision was originally subdivided in the 1960s. The reduced front setback would greatly reduce grading and need to cantilever the home into the abutting slope. The home is built to site constraints, which is not terribly typical. The way that the building is proposed is a 28-foot long, approximately, building portion along the northern side and a 23-foot long southern portion to match the top of the slope. The site design is consistent with adjoining homes by building to the top of the slope, which the Heathridge subdivision has varying front setbacks to accommodate that top slope. The proposed structure avoids steep slopes on the west side of the site. It's consistent with existing development patterns of the neighborhood and greatly limits the amount of required grading and site disturbance. There are no deviation to the side setbacks requested. So the recommended findings are on your screen and as outlined in your staff report. They will not significantly impact nearby property. There's no new encroachments. There's an existing city curb cut that they will be utilized to access the garage. The site placement is consistent with the surrounding development pattern. The project changes enabled will enhance the overall design of the project. Again, this allows for reduced to minimal grading. Does not constitute a special privilege and consistent with the limitations upon other properties. There are very front setbacks in Heathridge Lane ranging from approximately 20 to 37 feet based on the existing slope constraints. And health, safety, and welfare, the shorter front setback accounts for site conditions to reduce grading. Engineering criteria is evaluated at the building permit. That includes geotechnical reports, site drainage, post-construction stormwater, and the like. That concludes my presentation. The recommended motion for approval is on your screen. Also, the applicant's representative designer is here to answer any questions. I don't believe he has a presentation.
Thank you. Hearing there is no applicant presentation, we will now move forward to disclosures and then public comments. So, Commissioner Velto.
Commissioner Velto, no disclosures.
Commissioner Jockman, read and reviewed materials.
Commissioner Williams, same.
We will now go online. Commissioner Del Villar.
Commissioner Del Villar, read and reviewed materials.
Commissioner Becerra, read and reviewed materials and familiar with the site.
Commissioner Gonfiantini, read and reviewed materials. Commissioner Rohrmeyer, same disclosures.
Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment under this item?
I have one on Zoom. Judy Covert. If you want to speak under this item, just unmute your mic and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
My comments were for the canyon.
Judy, sorry, did you want to speak under this item or the next one?
The next one.
Okay, perfect. Leave your hand raised. We'll call on you for the next item. Okay, with that, I do not have any request to speak forms in chambers. We do not have anyone online with their hand raised. We did receive correspondence for this item that was forwarded to the commission and entered into the public record.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have any requests to speak in chambers at this time on this item? Hearing none, we will now move forward to questions from the commission. Commissioner Becerra.
Hey, thank you. Good evening. Hey, Nate, just a quick one. I think just in reading some of the public comment and the adjacent neighbors, does approving this project as presented materially change the established street rhythm or pattern alongside is Heathridge? Or like another way to look at it maybe is like, how will this break the visual alignment of homes along Heathridge Lane, if at all?
I don't think it would break the rhythm much, as I identified that, the front setbacks vary from roughly 18 to 35 feet. So there's quite a bit of diversity in the front setbacks, and that all appears to be based on the rear slope.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Nate. And then just one follow-up again, just based on the questions we received or feedback. Why is 15 feet the minimum necessary deviation?
I'm sorry, I think I had a hard time understanding that. Why is 15 feet the minimum?
Yes.
That you're only allowed up to a 50% reduction in the allowed front setback. So in the SF3 zone, the standard front setback would be 30 feet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. And then so with that, does reducing that setback introduce any slope stability risk?
No.
Okay, cool. Those are my questions for now. Thanks, Nate.
Commissioner Del Villar.
Thank you, Commissioner Del Villar. Yeah, this is for you, Nate. The only thing I was kind of concerned about or didn't quite understand was the garage or driveway. Obviously, 15 feet is pretty small, and so I'm just trying to figure out what the plan was for that, because I couldn't sort of understand what was happening with that.
So there is a condition of approval. So the garage, it would utilize an existing curb cut that's there currently. There is a condition of approval that to deviate from a 20-foot a 20-foot driveway, that would require permission from the city engineer. So that is a condition of approval that they meet that.
Okay.
And/or get approval from the city engineer at time of building permit.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Got one. Hi, Nate. Quick question, Commissioner Williams for the record. The last couple that have come up in front of us, on these steeper grades have talked about runoff and drainage. And is there anything that staff saw that we should be taking into consideration when making this approval tonight, or denial, I guess?
No, this is preliminary design. This is really just a zoning issue. All that, again, the geotechnical, drainage, stormwater prevention, all that's evaluated by engineering and public works during the building permit process.
Great, thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the commission at this time? Seeing no hands raised online, we will now move to deliberations and entertain a motion should one be made.
Commissioner Becerra, happy to make a motion if folks are okay.
Please proceed.
All right, fantastic. In the matter of case number LDC 26-00035, Roberts Front Setback Deviation, move to approve the project, and I can make the findings.
Commissioner Del Villar, second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Sorry, mine was an aye. Apologies.
Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. That concludes item C1, public hearing. We will now move on to item C2. This is also a public hearing. This is a staff report for possible action. Case number LDC 25-64, the Canyons tentative map and major site plan review. For this item, we will begin with another presentation from staff. Please proceed.
Hello again. For the record, Nathan Gilbert, Principal Planner, Development Services, presenting LDC 2564, the Canyons tentative map and major site plan review. So the 168-acre project site consists of 4 parcels located at the eastern terminus of Mineshaft Drive, east of the 260-lot Palisades subdivision to the west, and north of the Valley View PUD to the south. The request is for a tentative map for 110-unit single-family detached subdivision and major site plan reviews for hillside development, excess cuts and fills, grading and open space, disturbance of a major drainage way. Master plan designations on the site are single-family neighborhood and parks, greenways, and open space on the eastern 2 parcels. Key master plan policies include hillside development, cut and fill slopes, and pedestrian and bicycle connections. The zoning district for the entire site is the Canyons Planned Unit Development. So this is really an implementation of the standards in that handbook, which include density, the developable area, everything under the sun, the PUD addresses. So key issues with this entitlement are overall site design, compliance with PUD development standards, and appropriateness of grading practices. So the PUD identifies a 42-acre residential area designation. That's the yellow blob on your screen. The lots conform to this placement. The remainder of the subject site is 119 acres of passive and active open space. Now, this includes undisturbed open space, parks, infrastructure, and utilities. The subdivision is proposed in 2 phases, with the first phase at 97 lots, with an average lot size of 10,500 square feet, and a second phase with 17 lots on the easternmost 2 parcels, with an average lot size of 22,000 square feet. There are 2 accesses into a looped roadway that serve the development. That's Mineshaft Road, extensions of Mineshaft Road and Clane Jumper Way. Condition number 22 is recommended to ensure that future road connections to the Valley View PUD are maintained to the south. Those are policies outlined in both handbooks. A traffic entry and access study was performed and no impact to level of service was identified. It's anticipated that 82 a.m. peak hour and 109 p.m. peak hour trips would occur. Amenities identified with the planned unit development that are implemented through this approval include a half-acre neighborhood park, a 0.2-acre pocket park, a 0.5-acre demonstration garden, and a 0.9-acre trailhead area. Additionally, there are interconnected public trail system with connections to existing and proposed networks in the Palisades subdivision and planned connections to the Valley View PUD to the south. The PUD also outlines wildlife habitat restoration measures, somewhat unique to the PUD in that native pinyon pine and juniper plantings are proposed in disturbed areas. The disturbed areas are the areas in dark green there. Typically, code would just require revegetation of the moved dirt with native seeds. This requires the revegetation and also the pinyon pine and juniper plantings for kind of a unique and more natural aesthetic. It also requires habitat restoration in undisturbed areas. That's the area in light green on your screen. Code typically wouldn't require any sort of remediation to land that wasn't disturbed through grading practices. What the PUD identifies is removal of noxious weeds and overseeding of key planting species to help support wildlife. Lastly, a horse and wildlife fencing plan will be implemented per the PUD standards, and that will be implemented first prior to any development activity on the site. So the first of 4 of the major site plan reviews is for hillside development. So 65 acres are proposed to be disturbed, and 32 acres of undisturbed open space is required. There are 96 acres provided on the subject site. 14.5 acres of slopes, 30% or greater, are proposed for disturbance. The code requires an additional 2-to-1 mitigation of open space in areas less than 30% slope. That comes from a regional plan policy and is implemented in code, and the project meets or exceed code standards. So the graphic on your screen here, this is total site grading. This isn't all threshold grading. This is the total grading on the subject site. The areas in dark blue and dark red with the black outline are the areas of cuts and fills over the discretionary thresholds. So there are 8 areas of cuts greater than 20 feet with a maximum cut on site of 40 feet, and 13 areas of fill greater than 10 feet with a maximum fill of 39 feet. The cut and fill placement are consistent with the PUD residential area designation and as needed for the Tumwell water tanks to the very eastern portion of the site. 20% of the lots will utilize split-level foundation prioritized in these cut and fill areas to reduce overall grading. So grading in the park's open space and trail network designation, that's the open space designation in the PUD. 15 acres of disturbed post areas are proposed, and these are almost entirely to support infrastructure and park and trail amenities. Lastly is the disturbance of a major drainage way. There's 0.9 acres of disturbed major drainage way. I want to point out a correction in the staff report. That was the wrong number there. It's 0.9 acres proposed. 1/3 of that would be revegetated after the grading is accomplished. This is needed to facilitate 1 culvert road crossing for the extension of Claim Jumper Way into the site. The remaining major drainage way will be restored with ephemeral riparian habitat restoration. And the horse fencing through the major drainage way will have limited disturbance, as shown through the graphic on your screen. So the key tentative map findings, public services and utilities are available and adjacent to the site. There are no impacts to existing vehicle level of service anticipated. The project implements PUD and Reno Municipal Code standards consistent with the master plan, and no significant wildlife impacts are anticipated with PUD standards and conditions of approval. Key major site plan review findings include compatibility and consistency with surrounding development. This is comparable single-family lot sizes to the Palisades and comparable entitlements. The Palisades was adopted in 2014 and also had hillside cuts and fills and disturbance of major drainage way approvals. Overall appropriateness of site grading with code standards and recommended conditions. Hillside appropriate grading. The project layout is consistent with the adopted PUD and meets all RMC discretionary grading standards. As far as open space based on hillside constraints, the project exceeds open space required, including the 2-to-1 30% slope mitigation. That concludes my presentation. The recommendation of approval is on your screen. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. We will now hear a presentation from the applicant.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Brooke Oswald. I'm with the REC Group. I also have with me John Munson with Venture Engineering tonight, civil engineer on the project. I want to thank staff for working with us on this project and moving it forward. And we're really excited to kind of show you what we planned and how we've met the conditions. The location context, you have an idea of that. Just this is Damani Ranch High. There's an existing water tank there. The D is just below that. And this is the approximately 161 acres of the project site. As you can see over on the master plan, as Nate mentioned, you have the single family and the PGOS. The PGOS is really important. That's that area will be protected in perpetuity. That also has a regional tier of 3, which really limits that development. So we would see no additional development there outside of utilities. And then our zoning is the Canyons PUD handbook. We do have Mineshaft Drive and Claim Jumper Way, just for reference as I kind of go through this, our 2 egress points. Just to go back, this is the planned unit development. Over on the right there, you can see the Canyons handbook that has been approved and recorded with the county. It sits on the website, and those are the standards that all the development in this, along with RMC, are approved by. We did the PUD as we came through this to really establish a clear vision and long-term standards of that open space and housing. The previous ones were a little bit different. We provided a loop road, so providing continual access. That's great not only for the public and distributing traffic, but also for emergency vehicles and other situations. Additionally, there were a number of villages and different housing types, and we really compacted it into one village with some really straightforward standards. So we had a clear vision and predictable standards. We tried to balance that neighborhood and open space. We've got 119, almost 120 acres open space and 40 acres. So literally 3/4 of the site is open space. We added parks, trails, and community amenities within there, and then that stewardship and habitat restoration that Nate mentioned, and then safe and efficient hillside development. That's looking at our drainage, utilities, infrastructure, and those hillside conditions. And then moving on to the tenant map, the stage we are tonight and looking for the approval is we've aligned with the PUD handbook and Reno Municipal Code. So we've worked with staff to make sure everything is meeting both those standards. We've really used an efficient hillside land use. We've got 110 single-family homes on the site within that 42 acres with that looped road. And this is really planned that growth of the city and thoughtful sort of community growth and establishing a place and neighborhood in this area. We've got that strong development to open space balance. As I said, it's 3-to-1 that we're doing there. Our homes are clustered, really preserving those areas. And then where we are disturbing, we're going forward and enhancing. We provide that safe access, connectivity, public recreation. That's our roadway, our circulation. We have internal trail sessions, internal trail connections. We were originally working on a regional trail system that is still in the works there. That was led by Truckee Meadows Park Foundation. They have since folded as a nonprofit. That money's been moved otherwhere, but I did recently talk to people involved in that, and they're looking to find new funds and to get that project going. So we're really excited that this will be part of that. Infrastructure, utilities, and our supporting technical reports. We've provided a sewer, traffic, geotech already. Those have all been analyzed by engineering, and we meet the standards to move forward. Additionally, our water tank that we're seeing on our hillside up here, it looks like I should have been pushing the button. I apologize. So this is the larger park area. This park area has the trailhead, which has parking, which is unique in this site. Additionally, there's a number of amenities that are required to have public art and shade structures within this area. Our second park down here will be slated as a dog park and additionally has shade structures and art. And then looking at the utilities that I was speaking of before, those are moving up. Those are up in that PGOS area that is allowed per code for us to do. Those are designated by TUMWA, the location and size and access to those tanks. So we've worked with them to make sure that we're meeting their standards. And then finally, the habitat restoration, sustainability, and long-term stewardship. There is this habitat management plan that's included with this. Not only does it slate what will be planted in what areas, as Nate went through. It goes through different abilities of how it will be maintained, structured, so it provides opportunities for check-ins. Additionally, the PUD requires another $250 per home that will go back into the HOA that can only be used to help maintain and fulfill that habitat. Oftentimes what we see in HOAs is the open space sometimes can be neglected or not further taken care of. So we've tried to put a framework in place to move forward to protect this in perpetuity. I do have one condition modification. I did send this out earlier and have talked to many of you about it and staff. Staff is wanting sidewalks on both sides in front of the homes. What we're requesting is that we have the ability to look at this again through the Public Works Design Manual and RMC, which both allow in a hillside situation to have sidewalk on one side, and to determine as we move through the final map how to do that. I am proposing a condition on basically that says just that. A large portion of this is to reduce our overall grading. We really have to stay within that 42. We'd really like to minimize our impacts. This being a relatively small community with without a lot of connections and no thoroughfare, we feel that sidewalk on one side along with the trail system is sufficient. Additionally, if you look down the Palisades and surrounding neighborhoods, you're seeing similar development patterns of one sidewalk in those hillside areas. So project summary, efficient land use. We're really trying to use that land that we can to provide housing, amenities, and open space. We've hit those consistently with our city policies. Our stakeholder and agency coordination has been through parks, regional nonprofits, many state agencies, including Nevada Department of Wildlife, Nevada Department of Agriculture. We have sustainability components within this and trying to build a resilient community, both towards fire and other things. We've worked with the state forest group to help on future WUI issues, protection, restoration, enhancement of those natural resources, not only the habitat restoration, but looking at that drainage way and the importance of that. We've moved homes back. Our bridge and culvert area is an open bottom, which allows wildlife to move more easily through there. So we've gone kind of an extra effort. We have for this size and the hillside environment, great public recreation and trail connectivity. And then we are contributing to the housing affordability goals. There is a $1,000 donation that will be required per home that will go back to the city to help for further affordability. That's the conclusion of my presentation. I'm available for questions as needed. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to disclosures, starting here in person, and then we will go to public comment. Commissioner Velto.
Commissioner Velto received and reviewed emails as well as reviewed the packet.
Commissioner Jockman, phone call with applicant representative, read and reviewed materials.
Commissioner Williams read and reviewed materials and emails.
Commissioner Del Villar read and reviewed materials and had a call with the applicant representative.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer read and reviewed emails. I'm familiar with the site.
Commissioner Becerra, I spoke with the applicant's representative, Brooklyn, read and reviewed the material provided, including agency feedback and public comment. I guess for history, I took a personal one-on-one tour of the site with the late Tom Dolan and was privy to his vision of the project. And I was part of this item when it came before us December of 24 and voted in favor of it then.
And Commissioner Gonfantini, I see you just hopped back on. We're doing disclosures for the canyons.
Commissioner Gonfantini read and reviewed the materials.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, public comment.
Yes, we'll start on Zoom with Judy Covert, then Kevin Williams. Judy, just unmute your mic, state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Judy Covert, 10105 Gold Mine Drive, Reno, Nevada, 89521. I live in this 577 home development, and this project has had many iterations. And I have specific questions which I did send to the Planning Commission public comment. I don't know if you received those.
Ms. Covert, we are getting an echo. I don't know, is there anything you're able to do on your end?
I know I'm getting the echo too, and I don't know what's wrong.
Are you listening on two devices, Judy?
I'm on the laptop.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Okay. I assume that you received my comments and questions. And since then, they're talking about public trail. And does that part of, or is that part of the Damani Foothills Landscape Maintenance Association's maintenance? I mean, we pay as homeowners to maintain our trails. And we also pay as homeowners to maintain our ditches, which will have drains from this project. That's my question.
Judy, if you want to use up the rest of your time, you have 1.5 minutes. There'll be an opportunity for the applicant to answer your questions if they'd like after public comment is over.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is Kevin Williams. Kevin, unmute your mic and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, so my phone died. This is Tanya Tafkar, so I'm going to talk in place of Kevin. Is that okay?
No problem, Tanya. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, I'm a very long-time resident of Nevada for 52 years, and I've seen quite a lot of change, and some growth is fine. But when it starts taking away from beautiful open space and mountain ranges and impedes on wildlife, then I'm totally not for it. So please, I'm asking that the developers leave access to the gate at Mine Shaft so people can still walk their dogs there and do off-roading and look at the beautiful mountains that we have done, and it's been access for so long. And also for emergency access for any emergency vehicles. So anyways, I just thought I would add that in there and to please leave the access of Mine Shaft Gate so that people can go up there. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Next up, we have Karen Zachara.
Hello?
Yeah, Karen, we're getting a bit of an echo there. If there's anything you can do, but if not, just state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, is that better?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead. Can you hear us?
Karen, we can hear you.
My question is during the construction phase. There is only a couple neighborhood roads that allow access to that area right now. So I'm just wondering, will there be construction trucks driving up our neighborhood streets to get to this project? Because as I see it, again, there's only just a couple of roads that have access to that area.
Karen, does that conclude your comment? They're not able to answer your questions during public comment. So if you want to use all your time.
Sure. My second question, and I'm not sure whether or not you were able to point this out, but there's a road on the west side of the hillside. It was originally presented in the 2024 as an emergency access road only, but their current map shows it as a more regular road for access to the park and trailhead. This means a larger road and deeper cuts into the hillside. This should not be allowed, is my opinion. This was originally something that was denied to them, the developers, back in 21 and 22, and now it just appears as though it's being kind of snuck into the project. That concludes my questions.
If there's anyone else on Zoom who would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time. I have not received any requests to speak forms in chambers. Okay. Oh, Karen, that was just Karen. No one else on Zoom.
Okay, hearing no more online, do we have any requests to speak in chambers at this time on this item? Please raise your hand if so. Hearing none, that concludes public comment for this item. We will now entertain questions from the commission.
I'll start.
Commissioner Williams.
Commissioner Williams, for the record, one for the applicant. I just want to confirm that, are we to disregard the other suggestions you made to us via email about conditions you wish and solely focus on the sidewalks on one side of the street?
Yeah, in looking at that, we're comfortable with work with staff to do that.
I-
So we are just looking at the sidewalk condition.
Okay.
I believe your microphone is not on yet. Callie, can we check if that microphone is on at the podium? Perfect.
Okay.
And the answer, just for the record, was...
Would you say that again?
Yes, I sent an email to the Planning Commission previously. We looked at a few of the conditions and just had some, they were minor, everything was really a minor concern. Really, our concern is about the ability to work with staff on sidewalk on one side to reduce some of those grading impacts, and that's all we're asking. We're in agreement with everything else.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Delviar.
Thank you. This is a question for you, Brooke, if you don't mind staying up there.
Yes.
So we did receive a lot of correspondence, and so I just want to clarify a couple of things. And first is we're not here to decide if we're going to have a community there. The PUD is already in place. We're here solely to currently look at the tentative map and the site plan review. So I just want to make sure that people understand that that's what our role is here for this right now. But I did have a couple of questions for you. You talked in the presentation about the erosion and how you were going to help mitigate, not that you're creating erosion and then mitigating that erosion, but just that there has been erosion there in the past and ways that you're looking at mitigating that. So I'm wondering if you could talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, Brooke Oswald for the record. Also, I'm a registered landscape architect in the state of Nevada and have worked extensively in wildlife rehabilitation or restoration and stuff throughout my career. And so I was really excited about this project and that the owners of the property allowed me to kind of do more than is required. And so we've tried to minimize our grading. Those slopes where we're doing would normally just have to be regrassed or reseeded where we disturbed. And as Nate mentioned, those areas that aren't disturbed, we wouldn't really be required to do anything. What we've done through our plan is actually, and working with NDOW and vegetation specialists, we've devised some seed mixes and different things that we can actually enhance that area. The area has been, you have off-road use, we've had fires in the area, and then we've had kind of an excessive grading. And so the native habitat has really been impacted. And now with the fence going in and the regulation of off-road vehicles and establishing and having actually a financial mechanism to help take care of this, we actually think we can create a better habitat and better environment for wildlife.
Great, thank you. And then if I may, just one more question for now. And again, I saw a lot of questions come up and from public comment about public open space. And you mentioned in your presentation about passive and active. But just for clarity, the space that we're talking about right now is actually private. It's a private lot, right? It's not.
That is correct. That's 161 acres. It is all private. There is no public property on that. They have the public has had access to that property, and the Dolans and property owners have allowed sort of that to go through or to happen and have it encouraged it and know that it is a beautiful site and that connectivity to that area is amazing. That's one of the most beautiful canyons we have along the Virginia Range. What this does is actually establish a dedicated trail network and those connections, those parks and the open space. That is all private. It'll be, there'll be a easement, a public access easement, so that allows the public to use the parks, to use the trails, to enjoy that open space. And so really it creates a stronger security that the public will have access to that public land versus if it just stayed in an undeveloped state. It could be posted no trespass or whatever if decided by not that they would, but it could be.
Great, thank you. I have a few more questions, but I'll yield for now.
Commissioner Becerra, I see you drop back in and you had your hand raised previously. Yep, please proceed.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, let's see. I have, hey, Brooke, just going to ask a couple questions, I think, from the input that you received. I guess during construction, what specific conditions limit the haul routes, staging, and peak hour interference to the existing neighborhood or residents?
Sure. As that goes through, there's sort of city standards and there's some protocols that how that happens. They would be working with city staff. Obviously, there's input from the surrounding neighborhood. Nate could probably speak better to that process and what would be anticipated, but it's really looking at when that grading and those things start, trying to minimize those impacts as much as possible on the surrounding neighborhoods. That would be through distances, times of operation, and a number of other mechanisms that try to limit, during the construction phase, the impacts.
All right, awesome. Quick follow-up on that is.
Yes, please proceed, Commissioner Becerra.
Before access to
Commissioner Becerra, we're losing your audio. Maybe we can come back to you in 1 minute or try again.
You just kind of clarify public access easements, right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Manny?
Commissioner Becerra, could you please restate your question? Okay, we will circle back to Commissioner Becerra.
To clarify that people aren't going to lose access.
Chair Jockman, can we come back to Commissioner Becerra maybe?
Commissioner Becerra, we'll come back to you in 1 minute.
Maybe Kelly can text him or something and say.
Do we have any, Commissioner Del Villar, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I believe what he's trying to understand is, to the point that was made, will the public still have access via, whether it's the gate at Mine Shaft or it looks like there's a road there now? I think that was his question. That was actually part of my question as well.
Yes, we'd see the extension of not only the sidewalks, but we have a trail system that runs sort of along the hillside, parallel to the proposed access road, meeting the park and those other areas. And it ties in to some existing utility easements and other things that have historically been used to access that. So that would be open to the public.
Great. Also, and just one more question. It's about, I know you worked really closely with the different wildlife organizations, which I really appreciate. But can you kind of talk a little bit about what some of the plans are? Because I know you have sort of like interesting culverts and gates and fences and things like that to protect the wildlife.
Certainly, I think it all starts with that fence plan. That fence plan is the standard 5 no barbed wire fence to keep the horses out. That's all, for the safety of the horses and the public. That does not preclude wildlife from moving under or over those. Deer will go over a 4-foot fence quite easily, and coyotes and everything else will move through that. So we're not restricting the wildlife through moving in that area. We've maintained that the drainage way, and what you see with wildlife, they often use those drainage ways to move between different points. So that maintaining that drainage way allows them to move all the way down through the Palisades development, all the way back up through the canyon. So we're maintaining that access. We've also provided through that habitat, providing cover and forage, the ability to move both north and south across the site. Now, we've created several different plant palettes that promote forage, cover, pollination, and a number of other things. And so we're trying to build it more holistically in creating the base structure of basically, if we build it, they'll come, right? That's what we're looking with the wildlife.
Great, thank you.
I got one.
Commissioner Williams.
I got one for you. Commissioner Williams, for the record, now that I know you're a landscape architect, I went a little off path here, but I'm pretty sure last week the council signed the 2026 wildlife or wildland fire protection, series of things. Two trees that I heard on there that last time I checked, the pinions and the junipers are highly flammable, and a lot of neighborhoods are moving away from them. Can you talk about maybe how those will be planted so they don't become a fire risk, and with all this new things our
Certainly,
city's doing?
as part of moving through this and trying to determine the best trees and how to do this, I've worked with it's called the stewardship program. It's through the state's forestry department. So not only it's reestablished, so that area has really been burned out before. And the trees haven't, come back. And so what we have identified and will continue to identify are areas that are away and safe from the homes, so the homes will be protected, but that we can start to establish some of the native tree systems and stuff. Again, that's not only for erosion, but a lot of the natives actually have better fire protection in some ways against some of the non-native plants. We'll continue to work with them. Also, we'll work with our city fire to make sure that we're meeting our standards on each home and the WUI. And as that WUI goes, understanding too that now we're moving hydrants up into that area, and we've created the loop road, so we have great access. We're also created that, per that condition, the access across the hillside. What you don't want to see is you have to go up a neighborhood and then fire's got to go back down and go up a neighborhood. So we're trying to keep a continual across that top so they can actually fight a fire. So we've spent quite a bit of time with the stewardship program, looks not only at habitat, but looks at the WUI and fire specifically. So we'll continue to work with them.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Becerra.
Great, thank you. Hey, Brooke, I'm just going to re-ask the question because I don't think it got through all the way. The PUD requires public access easements and prohibits locked pedestrian pass-through gates, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because we heard concerns about potential loss of trail access, like near or around Mine Shaft Gate. And so I guess just one more time, could you confirm that public access will remain?
Public access will remain. I would say it would be improved. We have the money to build, new trail systems, maintain those trail systems. They'll meet some both Forest Service standards and some ADA standards that we've been trying to implement in the trail system. So,
fantastic. And that kind of tees me up for my follow-up. You mentioned maintain, and there was a question about maintenance. And so who is responsible for trail maintenance for this particular project or region? Is it the developer, an HOA, the city, or another entity,
yeah,
or all in one?
So just like the development below it, where they're required to maintain their drainage ways and trails, this would be the same. There'll be an HOA or a landscape maintenance association, depending on how they form and want to do it, and that they will be responsible for that long-term financing and maintenance of the open space and areas.
All right, great. And then just one last one. I guess kind of pivoting towards our other topic, horses. How will gate monitoring and feral horse management function operationally over time?
So we've worked with both the NDA, the city has set a number of standards over a period of time, and then we've also worked with the advocates. And so establishing that prior to any construction or anything for both the safety of the public and the horses, the initial outer perimeter fence will go in. So that will prevent and make sure the neighborhoods are there as the construction crews are going through and doing that. We've also worked on gate and pedestrian gates. And so we have no pass horse gates where pedestrians can move through. Mm-hmm. We have locked gates in case horses or can move through, or the easements, utility easements that they can move through. So we've created another number of different ways to make sure that we're trying to keep the horses out and safe and let the people still access and move through that area.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brooke.
Seeing no other hands raised, Commissioner Joachim, I'll ask a question, and this one will be directed at staff. For this question, would it be possible to put, Kelly, the proposed condition that came from the applicant as a part of their presentation? And my question is really just this. I recognize it's on the fly, but this is a condition that came from the applicant after the staff report. So is there anything that staff would like to add or share at this time? And then is there anything that you think we should consider in our deliberations for the review of this modified condition that's proposed?
Absolutely. That's condition number 23. That came from Development Services Engineering and Public Works. What they were asking for is that the project adhere to the Public Works Design Manual. And so that would only allow for a lack of sidewalk if there's not, let's say there's only one row of homes, right, and then the road, that you'd only need one sidewalk. But everywhere that there's homes on both sides of the street or a park, they requested that there be a sidewalk. That certainly furthers pedestrian safety and circulation goals. However, I would point out that the Planning Commission has the ability to waive that, to have them on one side. That would be consistent with the Palisades development, which was done similarly with the Hillside development with sidewalk on one side. So this is completely up to the purview of the Planning Commission. That's the recommendation of Public Works and Development Services Engineering.
Okay, thank you. And just to clarify that, you said that the adjacent development there's precedent there for sidewalk on one side.
Yeah, the 260 lot subdivision in the Palisades to the west has a similar pattern.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, if I could clarify, if you do modify that condition, I would have some suggested modifications.
Madam Clerk, would it be possible to get the phrasing of that condition on the
Is it in the applicant's presentation or the staff
It's in
presentation?
the applicant's.
applicant?
You might want to just click to the fifth slide if you can, Kelly, or you'll have to go through a number of animations.
Can I kind of add on to that while you guys are trying to pull that up?
Sure, Commissioner Del Villar.
So I had questions about that, and maybe Nate, you're going to cover that in this rewrite. But I love the fact that they were going to have sidewalks on both sides, but understand that there might be some restrictions. But my question really goes to who decides where it's okay to only have a sidewalk on one side and what that looks like. So I don't know, Nate, if you can. Thank you.
Yep, that's a great question, and that's why I would suggest this modification. So the modification to condition number 23, if the Planning Commission would like to entertain the sidewalk on the one side as presented in the site plans, so the grading plans as presented, I would suggest modifying condition number 23 to read as it is. Prior to approval of the final map, the applicant shall at a minimum provide for adequate pedestrian circulation, and this is where the change would come, consistent with Exhibit B. Right, because the way this is proposed, my concern is to Commissioner Del Villar's point is, well, Public Works could look at this and say, well, no, we don't want to. So this is the Planning Commission intent. I think, again, all conditions of approval are to the satisfaction of staff, and I think that would clarify the intent with the grading and the sidewalk as proposed.
Okay, thank you. So just to be clear, your proposed modification of condition 23 is to rephrase it such that the adequate pedestrian circulation is consistent with what is shown in Exhibit B.
Correct.
As a part of the site.
Consistent being the key word.
Understood.
That allows some
Consistent.
staff flexibility.
Okay. Thank you. No questions from me at this time. Commissioner Becerra.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think we're all kind of leaning towards the same line of questioning here, just more clarity. So Nate, your proposed amendment, it's a small one, but it's big in the grand scheme of things, right? So it's like, would you say that that's middle ground for the applicant and for the community in a sense, and for you guys behind the scenes at the city? Is that the middle ground solution?
The middle ground solution is just a clarification of what the applicant's requesting. want to make sure that there's no ambiguity there. And so again, if the Planning Commission elects to divert from standard Public Works design manual, that's at your pleasure. You're able to do that.
Okay, so kind of on that, what's the trade-off here, right? What do we, I guess, as a city, as a community, or stakeholders of that project, what's the trade-off? What are we giving up if we give up a sidewalk?
So there could be potentially more grading associated if they had to accommodate that. The trade-off would be public safety and enhanced circulation. But again, I'd reiterate that the Palisades subdivision is designed in the same fashion, where there's sidewalk only on one side of the road.
Right, and kind of on that, how has that worked for them? Has that worked out just fine? No issues, no public safety concerns?
I can't speak to that.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's the hard part, right? It's like, I know we're saying that it's been done, but if we don't necessarily have insights on how it's, been executed or what's the result of having done that, it's hard for us to evaluate it, as a comparable, I suppose. But it does help. Thank you, Nate.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer.
Oh, you know what? I actually meant, my comments are for discussion, not questions. Sorry.
Okay. Commissioner Del Villar.
Yeah, this is for Brooke. Maybe you can help us understand why you wanted to put this condition in, and that might help us understand if it's a condition we want to change.
Sure, and I think I kind of give a little justification for the modification up there. We're working in a hillside development context, providing sidewalks on both sides. It increases our overgrading impact, and we are limited on our development area and some of those things. And so every time you push out further, it just creates more impact on the open space. That's kind of the first, and more retaining walls and other sort of interests. The code does allow us to do that. We just want the ability to do that. We do have a trail system that provides other connection points and abilities to move and connectivity. And we just want to really balancing the safety with environmental sensitivity and grading efficiency while we're adhering to the standards. We're in agreement with what Nate proposed, and we'd be in support of that.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the commission at this time?
I'll ask one more, sir. I'll have some for our discussion within the commission, but I come from a community that has alternating sidewalks. And generally it's just fine, except for the portions that tend to cross the road. And we have a couple particular that are on bins, to which we've tried to add crossing beacons, high visibility paint. It's just inherently a terrible place to cross. I think the commission's generally all talking about this issue about one sidewalk, and I'm generally supportive, but can you clarify, like, when you go to switch sides of the street from one side to the other, or if that's not even going to happen, how you would do that so to mitigate where they're crossing is generally within side of some type of idea of not on curves?
Certainly, I think our first priority would be to avoid those situations where we're doing that and maintain sidewalk. If there was a design or something where it had to modify, the condition that staff's proposing allows us to work with staff to find the appropriate solution. So if that is modifying the crossing or extending a sidewalk or crosswalks or some other sort of acceptable traffic control in that area, we'd be amenable to that.
Okay, so during the design phase of that, you're willing to work with staff, and staff's capable of directing you guys in appropriate crossings?
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer, is this questions?
Yeah, I just was hoping that we could take a look at the blue and red cuts and fills map one more time.
Madam Clerk, I believe that is exhibit 1 minute.
And with that, I wanted to ask the question, I'm not sure if this is engineering. Explain to me, from looking at that map, how reducing a 4-foot sidewalk is going to improve cuts and fills. Because it looked like that was not going to do much to mitigate anything.
Brooke Oswald for the record. I'll try to answer that at a high level, and then I will punt to the engineering if it doesn't work. So 4-foot sidewalks are not allowed, so we would be looking at a minimum of 5 to 6 foot sidewalk. Additionally, when you start to get on those hillsides, you can have an additional 2 feet of banter or safe space offside your sidewalk. You just can't have a sidewalk run straight off a hillside. So you start to run in, you can move now 6 feet, now you're up to 8 feet. Some areas might require 10. Now, if you do this over a period of enough where the roads line up, that does start to push out, depending on the areas and the slopes that are there, that it could be quite impactful, or in a lower sloped area, it could be less impactful. But as you notice, we've got, some steep slopes we're trying to navigate, both for the safety and circulation and to provide those home sites. So does that answer your question?
Realistically, I guess because the neighbors asked for the sidewalk on both sides, how much of the 30% plus slopes, which are the ones that we're most concerned about constraints, would be saved or preserved if we went to a single sidewalk?
We didn't do those calculations. Do you have a general estimate, John, of what? I think in some areas, we wouldn't want to, once you start grading, you start chasing your tail a little bit, because now you have another impact. We're a little nervous it could create where we have retaining walls or others. You can oftentimes combine impacts that could actually have significant grading impacts overall.
Okay, I'm just not getting a lot of conclusive information here, but I appreciate it.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission, or would we like to move to deliberation? Hearing none, we will move to deliberation. Commissioner Rohrmeyer.
I mean, we've already heard the PUD, so this project is already been planned for. I just really don't see a lot of benefit in this case, having seen the cuts and fills plan for waiving the sidewalk on both sides. Now, normally in a hillside, anything to preserve the landscape is important, but the way this is designed and the way it sits on the hill, I'm not seeing a lot of benefit. So in terms of that, I just I don't see the necessity there.
I believe Commissioner Becerra, you were next.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to quick remark that hillside development carries just a higher burden, and really looking at the minimizing of the scarring, the protection of the drainage ways, and preserving of the visual character to the extent feasible. I'm generally leaning towards supporting this project, as I did before, when it was before us in the summer of 24. Just kind of still noodling on this proposed amendment here that's before us, or this new condition. So I'd love to hear others' thoughts on it as well.
Commissioner Del Villar.
So I appreciate the work that's gone into it. I appreciate the efforts working to preserve wildlife and public access and things like that. And as it was written by staff, I can make those findings. I do have concerns about the condition that the applicant would like in there. So that's really the only issue I have right now, and that's technically not part of what was presented by staff. So from that standpoint, I'm okay. I just probably would not put that condition in.
Commissioner Williams.
Commissioner Williams, for the record, like I was saying, I come from a community, a large one, that we alternate various sides, and they're very successful, and it makes a lot of sense. So I'm happy to support the Exhibit B amendment. as long as that we were on the same page about where those crossings happen. I thought this plan was well-designed and very well explained, and there was a lot of thought gone into it. So I'm happy to support this project, can make all the findings, and would support Exhibit B being added to the conditions.
Commissioner Jockman, I'm undecided at the moment as to whether or not we should proceed forward with a modified condition or stick with that of staff. The Exhibit B includes portions of the site that do not currently have sidewalk on both sides. So the proposed staff condition pushes them to sidewalks that would result in cuts and fills that are greater than what we are seeing in Exhibit B. Am I correct in that statement, Mr. Rayleigh? Yes. So I recognize we would result in more hillside grading with that condition as the applicant would move forward beyond what's being shown to us today. I'm weighing that against how this is, there is precedent in the adjacent development for sidewalk on one side of the street. I do see this as a low volume, generally low pedestrian environment. This is not like Midtown or downtown or many other parts of town where I would be unwavering to that sidewalk requirement on both sides. So I'm still undecided. I haven't thought this through, and I'd like to hear more from the commission before making a decision. Commissioner Becerra.
Great, thank you. Same, I'm kind of in that same place as you, Commissioner Jackman. And I think there was a couple things that you brought up and we spoke to earlier with Nate. And that was that, there is a quote unquote precedent, but there isn't necessarily data to support how that's worked, right? And I think Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, because this has kind of come up from time to time. While we say there's precedent, we don't really rely on precedent, correct? Like we're supposed to review each project kind of standalone.
That's correct. However, I think what Mr. Gilbert was trying to convey is that this would be, the proposed modification would be consistent with the development that's directly adjoining, which essentially this project will serve as an extension of the existing neighborhood that's up there. So from that perspective, a precedent has been set that within the same neighborhood, there's sidewalk on one side of the street.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks, Mike. I guess what would just be helpful is, I guess maybe for the future is for such projects is if we can have data or just insights on how these deviations, if you will, or these additional conditions to deviate from the standard has worked out.
Yeah, and I will say that, we typically see these either first on private roads or in hillside areas. And the reason that we consider them in hillside areas is for the very reason that the applicant is arguing. It reduces grading and the overall impacts, given that the site is grading intensive and has steep slopes. That's why I think, it could be an appropriate modification in this case.
Okay, great. And you would feel good with the modified condition, Mike, and by extension staff, Mr. Gilbert, folks?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mike.
And Commissioner Becerra, for my interest there, could you please clarify that the modified condition is that of the phrasing previously stated by staff or the applicant?
Actually, the applicant. So I guess my question is, do you feel comfortable with the proposed modified condition as presented by the applicant, which then was, I think, modified by staff a little bit?
Staff would recommend going with the modification as presented by staff by Mr. Gilbert.
Oh, by Mr. Gilbert. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I guess that's where I'll be leaning towards right now.
Understood. Commissioner Valto.
Could I just like to hear from Brooke a little bit more on the rationale for the one sidewalk? I don't know if you have anything to add, just I want to kind of get a full understanding.
Yeah, you bet. I also live in a neighborhood, a hillside neighborhood, has one sidewalk. It works quite well for the amount of traffic. I think as you're seeing hillside, you're seeing a little bit more limited people actually going up and down the hills, right? So you're reducing your overall amount of people that are using it. Those areas are low traffic areas. So to come out of your yard and to look both ways and to walk across to the other sidewalk, I've done it several times and never have a problem with it. I think as I was saying, those overall grading and reducing that grading where we have a very, as Mike said, a very intensive site of grading is really important to reduce that and to reduce our overall development area. That expands your development area out also, and so it starts to minimize your open space. We are constrained per the handbook to that 40 acres and 119. We have to meet that. And so what we're concerned about is if we get pushed and pushed out, that we are going to start to struggle to meet some of those numbers. We do feel that additional of the trail system that connects both north, south, east, and west provides these other great mechanisms of travel. It is consistent with the Palisades. I'm up in that neighborhood. I've been going up to that neighborhood and working on this project for 8 years now. The sidewalks work well up there. I've never seen any accidents, incidents, or any other, anything peculiar on it. You usually have people out walking in the morning, and then you see people coming home and walking in the evening. And then oftentimes you'll see, kids going down to the school bus, but most of the time the parents are driving their kids and that in that particular situation. So I don't think it's necessary. I think it does improve those overall grading impacts. Additionally, those sidewalks, public work, they become the property of the city of Reno. We'd anticipate that. They are responsible for maintaining those in the long end. And so that is a potentially more of a burden to a taxpayer in a situation that we don't need to see an additional sidewalk.
Can I have a follow-up question on that? So I guess I'm trying to understand if, so is the result of there only being sidewalks on one side of the road that the lots are bigger? So if you're basically taking away like 3 feet of sidewalk, will the lots just be bigger, or will there be less space that is developed and therefore more natural kind of open space?
The lots would be staying potentially the same size, and so you'd be moving out the sidewalk because we have a front setback and some other things that we need to meet. So you start to get in a little bit of that when determining on where the right-of-way is established and some of those other things in that case.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understood some of the things that were said previously. One, that if we actually, I think Chair Joachim said that this deviation could then actually create higher fills and deeper cuts. Did I understand that correctly?
That was my understanding. If you're directing that at the applicant, please specify.
Yes, I'm sorry, I just was confirming what I heard, but is that true?
Yes, and I confirmed that with the civil engineer that once you start to have additional, a sidewalk needs to be 3% across, and once you start to do that, that does start to potentially impact both your cuts and your fills to make sure that you can get that sidewalk in.
Okay, so and then my next question again about the motivation here is that I think, is it not true that the concern is that meeting that open space requirement might have to be offset by a reduction in lots?
That potentially could happen based on that we are limited to our development area per the PUD.
So, okay, so I just wanted to make that clear, like where the neighbors have asked, or at least a public comment has asked for a sidewalk on both sides of the street. And I didn't think I would care this much, except that was a comment that came. Second, that there is potentially more cuts and fills, therefore more aesthetic impacts and worse grading situation with this deviation. And then third, the fear is that there's a reduction in the number of lots you can develop. I just want to make clear what I understand. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
So we pivoted back to questions there. Do we have any other questions at this time? Let's go back at Commissioner Velton.
Sorry, I want to follow up on Commissioner Rohrmeyer's question. Can you explain to me why there would be worse cuts and fills with less sidewalk?
Oh, with less sidewalk, we would not have worse. I may have misunderstanding. I thought she was saying with the sidewalk, if we're required to go forward and have sidewalk on both sides, we would have increased cuts and potentially increased cuts and fills, and we would anticipate we would per the engineering. and that would impact the aesthetic and the open space areas. Also, because we are limited on our development area, if we're required to push those out, that could start to have an impact of our overall density.
And I get that, but it was the first part, because I don't know if I heard it wrong, but so I heard the conversation with you and Commissioner Rohrmeyer as you saying that if we had sidewalks on both sides, there'd be less cuts and fills. But you're saying there'd be
More cuts and fills.
understood. So perhaps I misheard.
Higher cuts and,
Relative to Exhibit B.
yeah,
Understood, yeah,
higher
okay,
and
okay.
cuts and fill, yes, to Exhibit B. And we had worked with staff, so we've moved through two different staff people, originally working with a previous staff member, who we've actually been working on sidewalks and finding the appropriate way. So we spent a lot of time with staff. We do have sidewalk in a lot of places on both sides. We're down closer where we thought that we would have a little bit more conjunction to provide that safety on both sides. And then we do go to sidewalk on one side where we feel that it's adequate to serve the needs and connectivity.
Understood, thank you.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. I understood that it had been said that the sidewalk on both sides would result in less cuts and, okay. So no, I appreciate the
Yeah,
clarification.
we'd anticipate higher greater cuts and greater fills to try to get the flat space, as it were, in the development project.
So this is Commissioner Jockman. I guess what I'll say, and this isn't a question, but it's, in my eyes, the way that we're reviewing this, we've got some comments in the line of hillside disturbance, wanting to minimize that. We've got public comments requesting pedestrian facilities. I view these to be in direct conflict for this application, and we've got to weigh those comments against each other.
And if I mean, I think I think that, yes, it is a balance, but I think it's not necessarily a trade-off. The connectivity is still being provided. I don't know if you could say you're actually going to have more safety or connectivity with the other sidewalk in other places where I see great connectivity through my neighborhood, other neighborhoods with one. We're seeing that down below. So I think that, looking at that, we are providing still connectivity and safety while we are trying to protect the environment, which has been one of the core sort of visions, both connectivity and open space enhancement in this project. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Commissioner Becerra.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to, acknowledge, I guess, the applicant. You all have done a really fine job with this. Outside of this particular item that we're discussing with the amended condition, I think it's a well put together project. I think right now, based on what I've heard so far, I'm leaning towards staff's version of their condition, but I'm still open, to be convinced to support, I guess, the applicant's proposed version if there's more deliberation. Otherwise, if there isn't, I'll lean towards deferring to staff's recommendation.
Commissioner Becerra, I'll weigh in on that as well. This is Commissioner Jockman speaking about that. The Exhibit B shows sidewalk on both sides of the road in a number of locations across the site. So if we do follow that, and I'm following you here in your thoughts, if we follow that recommendation for a modified phrasing of condition 23 as stated by staff, that will still result in sidewalk on both sides in at least a few locations that I can see throughout the site. So I'm moving along the lines of that modified condition myself. Commissioner Velto.
Yes, I would agree with you, Chair. I'm in line with the modified condition as well.
Chair Jockman, can I just confirm? So what you just said was that you would lean towards it because there are still particular areas that have two sidewalks, and we're just talking about modifying the areas that only have, or that are proposed for one? So you're okay with a blend of two and one, which would accomplish by the Exhibit B condition?
Commissioner Jockman, so my primary logic there is that staff has the opportunity to weigh in. We're not conditioning them with 2 sidewalks in every location, and staff has already weighed in on this exhibit on some level. So they've seen it, and we know that with that phrasing, the resulting final build-out will not be meaningfully different than what we're looking at today. If we go with the condition, the applicant will have to incur greater cuts and fills, more grading, more impact to the hillside. If they stick with Exhibit B, they're afforded the opportunity, and we know exactly what we'd be approving, quite frankly. So,
Great, thanks.
seeing no other requests to speak from the commission, now would be a time to entertain a motion. I believe we will want to specify clearly what the modified condition is on that. Commissioner Valto.
I'm ready to make a motion. I normally write down these modified conditions. I did not do that tonight. Does anybody have it, or does anybody have it that wants to make a motion? Oh, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think I'll get it right.
And one final opportunity, any members of the commission, final request to speak before a motion is made?
Commissioner Becerra, for the record, just quickly, is Commissioner Williams, is your proposed motion that of staff's recommended Exhibit B or not? Just
Staff's, Commissioner Williams, for the record, staff's recondition of condition 23 was, according to what I wrote down, prior to the approval of final map, the applicant shall at a minimum provide for adequate pedestrian circulation, including, but not limited to, consistent with Exhibit B. Am I correct?
okay. And that was the key word, consistent, I believe.
Consistent, yes.
Yeah, not including, just consistent with Exhibit B.
Okay, consistent with.
So we're striking everything from the first word, including, consistent with Exhibit B. That's the proposed staff modification, is that correct?
The rest of it's gone.
Nathan Gilbert, I'll read it into the record. The modified condition of approval 23 would read, prior to approval of the final map, the applicant shall at a minimum provide for adequate pedestrian circulation consistent with Exhibit B.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
Okay.
Commissioner Velto.
You want to go to it? You got that?
Commissioner Velto, would you like to proceed with a motion specifying that modified condition?
Yes. Give me 1 second. I'm just pulling up the. I could just look at the term. Okay. Let's see if I got this right. Okay. In the matter of case number LDC 25-00064, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the tentative map and major site plan review subject to conditions listed in the staff report with a modification to condition number 23 to read that prior to the approval of the final map, the applicant shall at a minimum provide, strike that, modification to condition number 23 to read that prior to the approval of the final map, the applicant shall provide for adequate pedestrian circulation consistent with Exhibit B.
Commissioner Becerra, I can second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. That concludes item C2. We will move to item D, business items. Mr. Raley, do we have anything under this?
Nothing this evening, Mr. Chair.
Item E, Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Liaison Report. We have, again, not had a meeting. We do have a meeting next week on Thursday. Oh, that is the February 26th, Thursday at 6 p.m.
There was actually a discussion that we can report on by the Regional Governing Board about the steering committee.
Please proceed, Commissioner Rohrmeyer.
Yeah, Commissioner Rohrmeyer, there was just on last week on the Regional Governing Board had a discussion about the subcommittee that is the steering committee of the Regional Planning Commission. which was working quarterly to meet. That would be one delegate from Sparks, one from Reno, and one from Washoe County. That would be the former chair, current chair, and future chair. And they were pushing to have, the discussion was pushing to have more regional coordination and look at ways to improve that. But the regional governing board does not appreciate that effort and will not be proceeding with that.
Do we have any other items under the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Liaison Report? Seeing none, we will move to item F, future agenda items. Do we have anything from staff on this?
Nothing from staff this evening.
Anything from the commission? Seeing none, that concludes item F. Item G, public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak under this item?
I do not have any requests to speak on this item, online or in person.
Thank you very much. Item H, adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Commissioner Williams, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Meeting adjourned.